This is the introduction video to Consignment Store version 4. It's best if you watch all these videos at 720 HD. I'm going to explain exactly what that means in a second. There are two current videos in the application, and we'll be adding the rest that describe the entire application. And these are step-by-step videos that take you through each field and each individual item that you need to know about running this application. So let's get started. First of all, on this screen, I'm going to go through using this on the iPad or iPhone, and then what happens up here. And of course, this also works on the Mac, PC Windows, and there's a cloud version. And the cloud version is used on a server on the internet, and it is a multi-user access and multiple device access, meaning that you can use this to run it on Windows, Mac, a Android device in a browser, and also the cloud version, which is also in the browser, but it can also be used with a product called FileMaker Go. And FileMaker Go is a free app that you can get from the iTunes Store, and what it allows you to do is to get additional functionality on an iPad that's not normally there, and it runs through the FM Go application and has all the features and benefits of this application and some additional ones that are run on the iPad and or the iPhone. Okay, let's talk from the top down and explain. To navigate through the application, we start by taking the videos and understand how the application performs. At the same time as say you're taking a video, you can go ahead and open up the iPad or on desktop. You can use the desktop. You can also have this loaded where the application is actually running while you're watching the videos and move between the screens. Okay, so for example, if I took this video and then I wanted to see that screen, what I can do is go up to the app map, and for the item that I'm looking at, in this case this is the overview that we're looking at for the consignor data page, and up here you see that you're looking at all the videos through this link here. And then this one here is the actual consignor data screen that we're going to be covering next. As you go down through each one of these, you'll see we have what was called a list view. And a list view takes all the records from a certain top record, like the consignment data, and it shows each individual record. So you can enter a screen from this button, or you can go to the list view itself. Let's pop over there and look at it. A list view is multiple records. And what the multiple records allow you to do is to come over here and click on Edit, and it'll take you to that particular record. So if I went over here and I was navigating, I'd click it and it'd bring me into the record. And this is called the consignor data screen. We're getting back to that in a second. The next thing I want to do is come back out here to the video, and you can see that it loads. It loads very fast actually, as you notice. Sometimes when you're using this, it's faster to watch the video on the iPad or the desktop than it is to go to a browser and then go through a browser. Okay, getting back to this, I wanted to point out that this particular application, the new version for Consignment Store 4, replaces the 3.0 and 3.5 versions. If you currently have 3.0 or 3.5, contact us at ontargetsolutions.biz and we'll talk to you about updating to the newest version. Another thing, when you're using this application, you want to be sure to make sure that the version is the latest version that you want. And you'll notice this one right off the bat as you go in. If you look in the YouTube videos for the 3.0 and 3.5 version, this one will be a separate version and have its own screens. And basically the URL is built into here, so you can go in here. You can go to YouTube. If you sign in, you can go directly to the videos if you want to. Let's go ahead and go down a little further and explain the app map. The app map had a consignor list view, a consignor contract. What the contract differs in from the 3.0 version, 3.5, is now the contract has as many pages as you want to add to it. Before we were restricted to 2 pages, and with the new features we have an endless number of contracts. When you go into the consignor data record, it's one consignor per new record, and all the additional data is linked to that particular consignor data. So if you went to the, say for example, the contract page, it's for that particular consignor for the page you're viewing. So if you click on it, it's going to come up with a contract for that particular consignor. Now what this does, it allows us to have individual contracts if you wanted to amend them or add additional pages, or say for example specific things that this particular consignor can do and can't do. That would be available through the individual contracts. And there's a contract list view that allows you to look at all the contracts and select one, like we did in the other list view, where you can pick the contract by clicking on the edit based on the person's name in the actual list view. Consignor report. Now this is really interesting. We had 3 reports that do the same thing as this one report anymore. To point out how much this application has changed between 3.5 and this one, there were 24 videos to explain how to use the 3.5 version. I'm estimating that this is going to be about 10 or maybe even less to do the entire application. What we've done is we've simplified the entire function and all the videos to add extra utility by taking one report and removing 3 other ones and making one that does everything the old one did and does it better. The Consignor Store has a user credit, and basically the consignor credit is the store credit, and this was on the 3 and 3.5 version, but we've greatly improved it where it just functions better. And now on the individual consignor page there's a popover that allows you to view everything you've ever sold and what the consignment commission was for that particular one that you are looking at. So this is kind of a new way of doing things as far as the consignor store credits. We still have the consignor UDF, but the UDFs now are also available. Instead of having to change screens, they are on the consignor data screen, so it makes it a little easier to use. In fact, the consignor store credit and several of these other screens are all located with a popover, so you can edit them on the consignor data screen. It just gives you a lot more utility as far as speed and data entry. For example, the consignor items listing that we used to have is now called the consignor items listing, and what it does is there is a popover on the consignor data screen that allows you to edit the consignor items from the main screen, the consignor data, and you can also pop over from that consignor data screen and pop over and go directly to the portal for this screen with a button that's in each row for the consigned item. So if you want to look at that individual consigned item in the scrolling portal that's on the consignor data screen, now you can just hit the portal button for that item and it takes you right to it. Small labels, we put in a label like we had on the 3 and 3.5 versions, and we're improving that as well. It's going to be available through this link, and so you have direct access to it. Buyer data, the buyer's data used to be a single screen individually, and it still is, but what happens now, we've also added linkable and popovers and stuff within that screen. And we've reduced the data for reports down again to one report, which is a more convenient way to do things. The buyer listing is a listing of all your buyers, and there is a default one that says a walk-in client, and that's the one you use when you're not adding a new buyer to the actual database and you have a walk-in client that doesn't want to be bothered by having to give you information. Now obviously if you have a walk-in buyer and he's going to be using a check or a credit card, it's a good idea to grab that information off the check or off the credit card and add it to your database while the customer is there. Especially if they're a local customer and you want to be able to contact them, you may want to ask them, do you want to be added to our list for updates and special offers that we're going to have, and we can actually get to you by email or whatever way you want us to. There you go. Order invoice is the actual order input for the order invoice. This is the document you create using this database to create an invoice. And the invoice, there's one for input, and then you just click on that screen to go to either a long invoice or a standard invoice. Standard invoice meaning that there's a short number of items. Typically, the average person that comes into the consignment store has about 7 items normally as an average. If you get a consignor that actually has a lot more than that, what we can do is use the long invoice. And what the long invoice does, it gives you the ability to have an unlimited number of invoices, pages. In this case, this is actually called the invoice long report. The report is a portion of where you use this as a invoice long that you can print, or it actually works like a report where it'll summarize information for each individual client that has used your store to buy items. And then there's the standard invoice is the one that just has about 10 or 12 items, rows that you can add to that particular invoice for people that are coming in and purchasing items in your store. Order invoice portal. This is the portal for the order invoice where the individual records can be used in a search like we have done, where we go in and actually look for a particular record like you would in a list view. This is a portal, individual portal, and when you click into a row or a field and do a search on that field, if you know the content that you're looking for, like somebody's name or whatever, or an item, this will take you to that particular record in the portal, and then you can view it on the list view. We also have a payment screen now that pops up on the invoice page, plus it has its own portal. So you can take payments directly into the invoice, and you can also have multiple rows for payments in case you have layaway or something like that. So this in a quick view shows you how the application is set up in the screens that are in it. But as I showed you, or I will be showing you, you'll see where there are popovers used in the consignment data screen. Okay, let's take a quick look at this too. This is called the do action. The do action is a start search. What that means is if I'm in the actual database and I click this, it'll empty all the fields out and put a magnifying glass in each field. Now, you cannot use this in a portal. That's a multi-line scrolling record. So if you're going to use this, you can either use it on the main screen for any page that you're looking at in the application, or you can go to the portal record where you typically would do a search, or a list view where you do a search. But what you do is you'd initially start the search. Once you've added the data to one of the rows, then you go ahead and click on Perform Search, and it actually brings up the data for which you are looking for items on. If you have records that are up on the screen, let's just pop over and do this. We're going to go over here to show you this. We'll go into the consigned data. These are records that have fields, and if you do a search, and as we're doing here, we can go over and say do action, start a search. It puts the magnifyings in there. You can click into any field. Now, if this was a portal, you cannot search in a portal, like if it had a portal over to the side. Let's show you something that looks like a portal. For example, the consignment screen, this is a portal where it scrolls. Okay, and when you're in the find mode, I have to be in a record that has data in it, but I would go ahead and click this, but I cannot take and do a search in a portal record. It will not work because you're looking at multiple rows. If I would not in find mode, this would scroll and you'd see additional records in this screen. Okay, so what you would do is you'd go ahead, in this case I'm just going to put in the record number 1, and I'm going to say go ahead and perform the, whoops, I did a new record, I didn't want to do that, and say perform the find, and it brings me right to the new record. Okay, so that's how easy it is to do a search. Let's go back to the main screen because I'm going to cover a little bit more stuff on the main screen here for the video tutorials. Okay, so what we do is we can omit one of the records, say like we did a search and there were records in there that we don't want to have in the particular choice of records that we're in at that time. And usually you would do this in a list view where you go in and say, okay, you could pick one record, like to say this is a row. I'd say omit it by clicking here, and that one would be eliminated from the screen. Then I would say, if I did the search and I wanted to flip it the other way and see all the ones I omitted, and say, for example, I had this one record and I omitted it, then the next one would be showing. If I show all omitted, it would do the reverse and show the opposite. So if I had multiple records on my screen, and I omitted 1 or 2 records, and then I wanted to see the other set, which is the ones that were omitted, I just say show omitted, and it would show that. At the end of any search, what you need to do is you need to click on Show All Records after you're done with that search. That'll bring all the records back to the screen. Say this is the list view, for example. It would bring all the records back. And the reason you do that is that you ended the search that you're working on and you want to show all the records again. This will, if you click on it on the desktop or on a iPad, it will, and also the cloud, it will remove, or not remove, it'll pop up the actual utility menus at the top of the screen. This application was designed where you do not have to use this tool as far as going to the toolbar. The reason for that is that what we're doing is we added all the buttonology and everything you need in order to navigate and do things. But if it comes to a point where there's a special need where you need to show the toolbar, you can do that by clicking this. The logout. The logout on the server and on the iPad or iPhone is required in order to exit the application and shut it down. So we're exiting the application, we click log out. There's no login unless you're on the cloud. If you're on the cloud, it's a multi-user application, so at that point, what you would do in order to leave the multi-user thing on the cloud as far as the application, you would go ahead and say log out, and it would take you out of the application. If you don't log out on the cloud, the hosting company usually gives you 15 minutes to half an hour, and if you have no activity, they're going to shut it down for you. But then you're going to have to log back in again. Okay, import and export. Import is an ability that is not included on the iPad or iPhone. You can do that on the cloud and desktop, but you cannot do it on the iPad and iPhone. And the reason for that is the design of the iPad and iPhone. They didn't give the ability to do imports, but you can do exports. And we'll cover this a little bit more in detail on a special video where we're going to show you how to do imports and exports. If you're on the desktop or on the cloud, you have some options to save a screen that you're viewing with the fields that are available. They cannot be portal fields. They have to be regular data fields like I showed you on the consignor data card. What happens when you click this, it'll capture it into an Excel showing all the fields that were in there, and now you would have them in Excel. You also have the ability to save it to a PDF. Now on the File Maker Go app, you can do both of these, and what the save as a PDF is a option that's usually up. There's a gear up at the top of the screen. You click on that, and it gives you the ability to either send something by email and create a PDF of that, and then email it to someone. And the Excel thing is not available on FM Go, and for that reason, it's not going to be able to do that. Print setup. This gives you the ability to set up the portrait and landscape views and other things that you may want to set up depending on the kind of printer that you're using. And you can print from the FM Go app on the iPad or iPhone, but it has to have a wireless printer in order to do that because, as you well know, you can't connect directly to a printer from the iPad or iPhone. Then you can just go ahead and click this, and it gives the dialog to go ahead and print things. And we've already done some of the things where we go first record, next record, last record. And then if you need support from us, this will take you to our support site where you can go ahead and chat with us or review information on the site about other applications or get support from us. Okay, let's do one last thing. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first video. And what it's going to do, it's going to bring it up on the screen. And as soon as we get it up on the screen, I'm going to turn it off. And I just want to show you that we're going to covering the old 3.0 and 3.5. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about how it's changed. Now, if you haven't used this before, basically what I'm showing this for is that if you want to expand to this full screen to see it as a larger view, you use this icon. This one takes it to AirPlay, so you can watch it on your TV set or other devices that are listed on AirPlay. This one is a theater mode where it kind of wraps it all around. You get to see it. But one of the most important ones in here is the gear. If you're looking at with the way these open, you'll see that the text is hard to read, especially when it's at this lower view. But what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and put it into 720 HD. It'll spin for a second, and when it gets done, you'll be able to actually read the data on this screen fairly clearly. But then, of course, when you go up to enlarge it, it's going to take a second to do this, to full screen. Okay, let's go ahead and... help. I'm going to be covering the interface overview. Okay, let's go ahead and try it again. Full screen is unavailable. Learn more. Okay, well, I think the reason for that is that the way I'm doing this is on the desktop, not on the iPad or iPhone. And this will function differently when you get it as a standalone item. Okay, we're in HD, as you notice. You can do closed caption if you want to. And then if you've ever viewed a YouTube video, you'll know how to use these over here. But sometimes people don't know that you can expand this all the way out or play it on AirPlay. Now, when I clicked on AirPlay, that's probably why I messed this up. It should expand to fill the entire screen. Of course, you can always go down and pick the videos that are editioned down here, just like you do on YouTube. Okay, this pretty much, oh, by the way, if you sign in, I believe that this will function just exactly like I was trying to say, and it'll expand and all that. So you can sign into your own YouTube account if you need to. And of course, there is a drop down to access other things on the screen. Okay, that concludes this particular tutorial. If you have any questions or you're stuck trying to get answers, go ahead and click on the Do Action and go to our support page in order to get answers. Thank you.